Hello and welcome to an Outlook discussion. This week we are focusing on our cover story is on the politics of demolition. It's been there from in Delhi's Jahangirpuri. It happened recently. It was in the news in the Uttar Pradesh elections when the elections were going on. The bulldozer had become a symbol of power as well as of people suffering of the people whose houses have been razed and who are left homeless. So we thought we'll take a look at finally who are the people who get displaced. It's somehow never the rich or the powerful. It's always the poor. Whether it is for building a dam or a factory or a flyover or a road or whatever it is, it always is it's the voiceless and the poor who are the sufferers actually in this. So we've gone right from Kashmir, from Srinagar to Bastar to Mumbai to Alwar we have tried to cover as much as we can of the whole of the country in this issue, and the cover itself is from Alwar, which we had this is the cover. So yeah, Chinky, so you want to, the process of what, the discussion that we had before and why we are doing it at this point.
Okay, so basically when this Jahangirpuri demolitions happened, it looked like we could do it. Not that we are anyways trying to break away from the mediocrity of the news cycle, but that doesn't mean that we'll not follow the news. This was something that had echoes in the past, and it also suited in terms of our new perspective in Outlook, where we take up issues and we kind of, that issue becomes the nucleus, and then we spread outwards to kind of like look at everything. The interesting thing I wanted to share was a personal story basically, because when the Jahangirpuri demolitions were going on, I remember, I used to have a cook called Amna in Nizamuddin many years ago. I think it was 10 years ago. And, she would travel 2.5 hours from Bavana to come to Nizamuddin, where she used to work as a domestic help. And then she would go back in the evening. I think her son was an auto driver or something, and he would take her back. And it was very difficult because she was very old, and all her life she had worked in Nizamuddin. So when the Nizamuddin slum demolitions happened, and she would tell me the story that how they were picked up one night in a truck, and basically they clung on to whatever belongings that they had, little bit and stuff, and their slums were raised overnight. During the Commonwealth Games, when the government decided to hide Delhi's poverty, a lot of these slum dwellers actually were pushed out again.
Right.
So, and then we obviously the recent one with the migrants, it's not the same, but it's the same thing. The echoes were there of the poor, suffering.
That's right.
So that actually, and then that was the question as to who suffers, the livelihood question, all of this, and then now of course this bulldozer thing that Satish just mentioned, also minority question. So this whole thing of demolitions has become like this whole politics of it. And that's why we decided to take this cover. And it's interesting because you have a human element over here, which is quite interesting. You have a woman looking, and it's it has a melancholic kind of a tone to it. Like somebody loses everything. What is a house to you? You build it, and if the government cannot, like these laborers work here, they sustain us, and if we can't have these they're going to bulldoze their houses.
Right.
It's one of those.
Yeah, and as we said, we were saying, it's always the poor in the end who suffer. In Delhi, for instance, one has always heard of, say, the scenic farms, which are like apparently illegally built, and that this I've been hearing now at least for 40 years that they're going to be raised and not one boundary wall has fallen. They are like, I think in fact only building more and more. So encroachment happens. See, the point is not that of course building on a land which is not yours is illegal. That's true. But then it should be equal for all. In the posh localities of Delhi, for instance, there is blatant encroachment
everywhere actually.
You go to Bombay. In the sense that the payments are taken over by garages and guard houses. Nobody really questions those. It's only this suddenly this there is a drive and the whole basti is gone. Whole slum is gone. So in fact Bombay, that's another example, very tragic example of this redevelopment.
Bombay's redevelopment is bizarre. Because when we were talking to Haiba about this, and this we touched upon in the Kamatipura issue as well, because Kamatipura will now go in for redevelopment, and there have been people, families that have been in the transit camp for decades, by the way, just waiting for some kind of allotment. Now, other question that it raises is then who lives in the city, who has a claim to the city, and that itself is a very pertinent question. So Haima looked at the redevelopment situation in Bombay, where, you know, I was in Bombay recently, and, you know, in Parel, all you see is like this apocalyptic, like high rises, you know, and then the poor people will be given like some kind of a housing situation next to it, which to me is quite unequal in terms of even the optics of it. And then they will be pushed out of those as well, because they can't afford the maintenance, right? So it's kind of all very not so poor friendly, let's say, and poor people are being driven out of the cities. They will stay at the peripheries, travel long distances to work for us. So maybe it was important to look at that, and we have
and we have, you know, like the basic right to life. I mean, you know, the basic right
and
to
dignity.
live. And with dignity, that's what, you know, for instance, Colin Gonsalves argues very well in his piece in the issue, the legal part of it. You know, what rights do people have even if you are poor? I mean, it's equal rights
for all. And why are poor
all.
people called encroachers?
Exactly. And it's amazing how widespread it is. Like, for instance, in Roopnagar in Jammu, you know, these Gujars and the you know, the tribals there, you know, who have been again, you know, lying there like that, as you were saying, maybe like your maid situation, the house help. It's just like that. I mean, it's just, and for years and years, I mean, there is absolutely no rehabilitation at all.
No, not at all. And the rehabilitation doesn't work really. I mean, the policies are very strange. The other point I wanted to bring in was that this country has a history of demolitions in terms of political whatever. Look at the Babri Masjid demolition. I mean, I know it's the Supreme Court took an exception saying that, you know, the Places of Worship Act amendment, whatever, 1971, it is exempt, but it is a demolition, and it is a kind of a you know, politically motivated or whatever it is, you know. So we have looked at that as well. I mean, that also was one of the trigger points for us to do the issue, because of this whole demolitions. And Alwar, of course, Rafi has gone there.
And we have a great essay by Medha Patkar on you know, displaced people because of the dam. I mean, or any other big project that comes through. What happens to them? You know, their lives are completely you know, turned topsy turvy, and they lose everything.
Same thing, like, you know, you build something over such a long period of time, and suddenly your livelihood option is gone.
That's right.
And I think policy needs to factor into account all these things. And now we can go.
That is what our basic, the call in the whole issue has been, that really, that, you know, the policies must change to cater to the homeless and the voiceless. And of course, as always, we have a very strong back of the book section in Substrata. In fact, Chinky has done a very fantastic piece on Sudarshan Shetty on his new exhibition. And
no, actually, you know, this film was made for this Shivas Regal Alchemy in 2019. So, you know, there were like 5 people that they had chosen, like Manish Arora, Malaika, you know, Arora, and Sudarshan was part of it. And he said, I will. And his work has always looked at love, actually. And so Age of Love was there, and obviously previously has worked a lot on this subject matter. But this film was outstanding in terms of, if you watch it, it's Hindustani classical composition sung by you know, 6 people here. The earlier film did not have 2 singers that he introduces in this one. So this was one of the opening shows for the art fair. And I mean, I know Sudarshan, he's been a friend for a long time. It's very interesting, the film, because the chandelier then falls, you know, and then I kept asking Sudarshan that why does this chandelier fall, and he keeps evading, and he's always he's never imposed his story, right? And which is what a lot of artists these days do. And he said, but I'm also questioning this entire thing of love, and when the chandelier falls, then that means the illusion breaks. And it's quite interesting if you look at the images, you know, that he has used, like the chandelier, a very modern dining table. It has been shot in Golden Tobacco Factory. And so basically we'll be posting that film also on the Outlook online forum for everyone to see. And then so that's there. It's called The Age of Love.
And there is this fantastic photo feature. Sorry, you know, we are able to show only the black and white photos because the magazine is actually getting printed just now. So it will be kind of being ready to dispatch. So right now we only have the cover. So then the of young girls in poorer localities.
This is Ghitorni.
In trying to, you know, wanting to be football soccer stars.
And how they cut their hair. And it's quite a fun this thing. And we are going to...
Full of spunk and, you know, full of dreams and hopes, and, you know, it's a very positive story that we have.
And we have a lot more in this issue, not just this actually. I mean, So please,
as always, I mean, there's lots to read. Do pick up a copy. Thank you.